Hello and welcome, dear viewers. Here it starts our weekly edition, ATV Special, and I am Zalalem Ibeltal, producer of the program. This day, information is becoming very crucial. It is the master key for success in every walk of life, to succeed in business, to establish a democratic system, to change the lives of the society. Really, information is a matter of must. In fact, this age is information age. It is information era. And to be successful, to be the champion of your environment, you need to have access to information, access to accurate information. And most of the time, we get information from media. Ethiopia, which is a population of 100 million plus people, is challenged by a low number of media. Even the existing media, both in the mainstream and the online social media, are not in a position to provide more professional, accurate and balanced information to their audience. Ethiopian media, after the new reform, which started in April 2018, has seen some remarkable change. However, still there are problems. Still there is misinformation, disinformation, fake news. Still there is unethical reporting. Still there is irresponsible social media usage. So the question is, how can we create vibrant media environment so that the society can benefit from the service we are rendering? To discuss on such tough issues of our time, I am joined by two gentlemen from the University of Bahar Dar. Stay tuned. My guests Ayela Addis and Solomon Tawor, both of you are PhD candidates in the University of Bahar Dar in the field of journalism and communication. Many thanks for making time to conduct this interview.
Thank you for having us and invited us for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's start from your broader perspective on the state of Ethiopian media. I think Ethiopian media has some up and down moments. So could you tell us the journey of Ethiopian media? Let's start from Mayele.
During the Emperor Menelik II period, the first handmade press transit into the modern printing machine. That's Amro. Different scholars claim the first newspaper is Amro, and some scholars say that the first newspaper is the untitled newspaper of Blata Gabriel Xavier. But in the debate, which one is the first newspaper, the number of circulation still did not get, debatable. It's not really accurate information. But the establishment reason and rationality of the Ethiopian media is the will of the politics and the subservient of the politics. The radio starts during the occupation of Italians, Italy. 5 years occupation of Italy, and later, in the 1956, in the Ethiopian calendar, the Ethiopia television started broadcasting and reach out in the Addis Ababa and surrounding areas. All these are the main mission of the media is declare and praise the kings or the governors of the country, not behalf of the public interest, not like reporting professionally and showing problems and investigating the stories.
Which is against the very objective of media, because media has to be the mouth of the public.
Yes, not only the mouth of the public, it's expected to reflect diverse views of the public, and also a part of the public, and serving as a bridge between the government and the public. In the military period, we can see that the newspapers and the broadcast media use as an ideological tool, which is the purpose of using the media to propagate the military ideologies. Later, when it comes to post-1991, the new revolutionary period, there was also we can see that the political transition history is a golden period of Ethiopian media.
Golden opportunity.
We can mark some political transition in post-April 2018, post the revolution, the new reform, and also in post-1991 when EPRDF came to power, and also the Derg regime or the military regime talks the power of the monarchy. All this transition period is not like takes more than 3 years, but it's when a honeymoon of the government or the political transition, a number of media flourish and new perspectives are allowed to speak even in the government
well
media.
said, Ayele. Even in 1991, when the TPLF-led EPRDF party came to power, the Ethiopian media industry was mushroomed. Thank you for your exciting and quick highlight of Ethiopian media. Please, Solomon, do you have something to add on the views of Ayele?
After the TPLF-led EPRDF took power, we can classify, I think, the history into two broad classification. One is before election 97, where the media flourished, where the journalists thrived and have some sort of freedom of expression. And after what we call it the paradigm shift time after election 97. When I'm just comparing the two eras, it's quite amazing.
Quite amazing.
Yeah. Journalists have got a right, particularly the private press have got a right. There were many private presses and they have got a right to write, to express their views, their opinions. Right after election 97, everything has been changed. It was very challenging for journalists. They were locked up in jail, many of them, thrown behind bars. Freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of mass media greatly compromised. It fell under the hands of the government, and things became worse and worse after that period of time, I think. So it was a very challenging period of time right after election 97. So we can look at it by classifying the time before election 97 and after election 97. I think the historical part is well explained by Ato Ayele.
Yeah, well said, Solomon. Ethiopia was labeled as one of the most censored nations. Really, the era was a dark age for the growth of Ethiopian media. And let us rush to the next part of the interview. And we Ethiopians are hungered of democracy, right? Democratic elements such as freedom of speech, for example. And media is there to promote democracy, to promote freedom of speech. And unfortunately, Ethiopian media are not in the business of doing that. Why so? What are the challenges of Ethiopian media in promoting democracy and free speech?
Yeah, we can mention a number of factors, especially the challenges of Ethiopian media. The first is the political commitment. The country's political economy is a forefather of any development, or the media development, freedom of expression is an orientation of the political system. The leaders, the regulation and the regulatories is come up and exists under the command of the political ideology. In this regard, the Ethiopian government, of course, we can find in the constitutional guaranteed rules in freedom of expression, and 589/2008, the freedom of mass media and access to information proclamation also ensure freedom of mass media and accessing any information from any citizen. But still, a number of information is locked down under the government cabinets. We can see that the online portal systems of the government institutions, any ministers, any ministerial offices or any regional governments not upload their plan. Reporters. We do not, the journalists cannot compare and evaluate where it will fill the gaps. And they can't access to information. So the journalists only get a handout of information. Because of this, the Ethiopian journalists are a handout journalists.
A handout journalists.
Yes, they took some notice from the government officials. They took some pieces of information from the lips of the officials, and they disseminated that.
The officials are not open, and the public right of getting information is locked.
Yes. Fear of openness. Lack of transparency and lack of accountability. Even we can see that in our internal system of the officials transition. When one official transit to the other office or quit his job, they damage all information. We can't find the whole tangible informations and transfer to the next generation or transfer to the next authority level. So that we do not have the center of information bank for all accessible data. Because of this, hoax news, fake news is disseminated in all over the country. Currently, this trend is continued and the government is challenged by fact-checking process. The ownership of the government is the other challenge, the ownership of the media. Who is the owner? Most of the media, whether in private or public state-owned medias, are loyal to the owners. So they look every steps the direction of their owners. Because of this, the debate, the freedom of expression and the freedom of thought is restricted.
Solomon, what can you say about this? Let me remind you my questions. What are the challenges of Ethiopian media in promoting democracy and free speech?
Well, many of the points were mentioned by my colleague, my friend Ato Ayela. Just to add some, he has taken much of the time explaining it, and it's quite interesting. There are some things which are associated with the government, responsibilities of the government that the government has or need to do, and there are jobs and tasks that needs to be taken care of by the part of the journalist himself, and there are things that needs to be addressed by associations, the so-called journalists associations, because principally the problems emanates from these three areas. We are just looking at the government, as Ato Ayele clearly and beautifully mentioned it. We are just looking at the media situation, environment. It is a direct replica of the politics. You see, the hustle, bustle of the politics is directly reflected on the media. It's quite amazing to mention some things. The head of the medias or the managers of the medias are politically appointed. They are appointed by the political party in power, and it has got an influence, a huge influence, right? In terms of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and freedom of mass media. If the politics is subsiding money, if the politics is appointing managers, one way or another there will be an influence, right? That's it. So it's quite obvious that the government has a huge hand in compromising the freedom of expression, freedom of the mass media. But how can we manage it? How can we fight it? How can we resist it? When I'm just raising this question, the point will be the assignment of the journalists themselves. Somehow we need to be resistant as a journalist, as a practitioner journalist. Whatsoever impact coming from anybody, from any corner, we should be resistive. We need to fight back somehow, right? So starting from knowing, understanding, and comprehending the subject matter well, that means exhaling professionalism, up to challenging the challenges coming from any part, the journalists need to take care of that, right? The question of professionalism is a huge question that compromises this freedom of expression. Once you understand the subject matter well, once you comprehend the science well, you will develop the energy, the stamina of fighting back, you see? So there is a problem in having the right knowledge, the right skill, the right know-how of the profession itself, you see? And the other stakeholders are the Journalists Association. My friend here, Ayele, he's the leader of Amara Journalists Association. He knows the subject matter well. They are responsible, I think. They are there. They have formed an association to defend the needs, interests, privileges, and the freedom of the profession as a whole, and journalists in particular. Are they doing the job? I am afraid they are not. They are not doing the job, right? There are many journalists associations in the country, right? To mention some, there are Free Journalists Association, Ethiopian Free Journalists Association. There are sport journalists, environmental journalists. My friend will help me here. Many journalist associations. Are they doing their task right?
Yeah.
Are they discharging their responsibility right? That's the question, right? So these three groups need to come together and contribute their level best, exert their maximum effort, so that things regarding freedom of expression might come to shape, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You guys, I'm very delighted of your explanation and perspectives regarding the topic of my discussion. And let's talk about the recent state of Ethiopian media. As you rightly said, Ethiopian media are the direct reflection of the Ethiopian politics. And for the last 3 decades, for the last 30 years or so, Ethiopia was under the administration of ethnic federalism. And that administration divided Ethiopia into 9 regions, and now 10 regions. And these regions have their own media with ethnic orientations. So my question is, don't you think that such regional media with ethnic orientation hamper national consensus, the question of the time?
I'm afraid not. I'm just taking the opportunity, snatching the opportunity from my friend.
You have
no, just you can continue.
It's our mode of thinking that makes things difficult.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is a unity within diversity.
Yeah.
Right? We are just looking at the bigger nation, Ethiopia. It's diverse in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of religion, right? We can mention many diversities.
Yeah.
But those things should be our beauty, not the thing that divide us apart, right? So, as you have mentioned, Zelalem, there are 10 regional states in Ethiopia. Each of them are having their own mass media. That's a very nice thing, right?
That's a very nice, astonishing thing, by the way. The question is, these media are organized in ethnic orientation. And for example, media in Oromo are saying Oromo. Media in Amhara are saying that the rights of Amhara is snatched, the rights of Amhara is violated, Amhara is going to be attacked, like that. The media in Tigray are echoing the voice of Tigrayans. And in such media orientation, in such line of media service, I think there will be kind of ethnic tension.
Absolutely.
And what we are witnessing in Ethiopia is this.
Yeah, the problem is the politics itself. Freedom of editorial independence, I think.
Yeah.
Those medias which are established in different regional states need to come together. This is part of our next research conference, I think.
In April.
That's it. So we are journalists. We need to respect first and foremost our editorial independence, and we need to fight back anything coming from anybody, right? So that the ethnic politics, which have tried to fallen apart the country, will also come to the mass media. You see?
Yeah.
The question is, are we going to accept it?
Yeah.
Are you going to take it for granted?
Yeah.
And reflect what's going on actually on the ground regarding the politics? Are you going to do that? That's the question.
That's the question.
If you fight back for our editorial independence, right? The regional medias will only work professionally. You see? So they will work for national integration rather than disintegration. You see? The point is, are we professionals? Are we respecting our profession? The noble, the golden profession of journalism, right? Wherever you are, who or whatsoever challenging coming from to you, the point is the pillars, right? The principles, the standards of the journalism. So long as those standards, those professional ethical code of conducts are respected, there will no more different, I think, between medias, regional medias.
Thank you for your beautiful thought. And for the interest of time, let's give the chance to Ayele, and we will rush to the next question.
Okay, we can't deny our differences, especially the last 13 years ethnic federalism arrangement. And now 10 regions have their own media stations. But all this problem is ethnical affiliation, is its own problem, one side of a story. We wanted to hear about Tigrayans as a human being. We wanted to hear about Oromo. We have concern about South Nation nationality. All agendas is focused on national consensus and Ethiopia first. But when you come to manage the regional media problem to alleviate and a continued solution come up with the government, these medias should be transferred into a public management, not the political management. It needs to transfer as a public media ownership system. We can see in the Ethiopian media regulations 3 types of media ownership. The public, by default, it's state-owned. Not emancipate regional medias or the federal medias from the government ownership. But they are represented and owned by taxpayers of the public. I think we will see the role of the public in the free media environment later. But these all medias is owned by and managed by the public money and the public funds collected from taxpayers. So they should first responsible for the public, the Ethiopian people, nation and nationalities. All the regional constitutions also, there is the right to movement. You can't to be restricted the right to movement. So idea also a free thought. Now we are living in the global world and the media driven world. In this circumstance, the media idea come up not only the one side or the owners of the media. The government is not ensure the ownership type of public media. Still they are continued under the government ownership system. This should be reformed. And the next one, when you come to the national consensus, the media, which is the regulatory bodies like Ethiopian Broadcast Authority, gives licenses. Not the Ethiopian government authority is not given by ethnic-based media, regional-based media. This regional division is only the purpose of administration. Some regions claim some geographical areas belongs to them, and some regions claim this area is mine. In this case, you can't solve our problem. We will solve our problem through unity, through Ethiopia First agenda. Otherwise, we can't to be cool down our turmoils.
Now we are going to conduct our 6th parliamentary election, the election which will let us our next prime minister, our next ruling party, and the next political administration. And unfortunately, now we are in the state of fake news, disinformation. Don't you think this will hamper the election? I will be glad if you start your explanation from misinformation, disinformation, fake news.
When you talk about the misinformation, disinformation, fake news, malinformation in the current Ethiopian media landscape, misinformation is full of in the mainstream media, especially the broadcast media, focus on regional medias and even the federal medias or state-owned, party-owned medias also, endowment parties-owned media. In this regard, it's a big challenge for Ethiopia, the coming election, fake news, misinformation and disinformation. Especially the online landscape is full of hate speech in base of ethnic, in base of religion, in base of status, and it's not a debate to come with in a common consensus. It's only for a purpose of disintegration and conflict and war. In this situation, the fate of Ethiopia is it's a critical time to pass. How will be solved this problem is the main question maybe. Of course, in several times, the health of the internet is not healthy in Ethiopian situation. Some conflicts arose, even in the last 30 years, our experience. Any conflicts arose in some areas. The first measure taken by the government is ban internet.
That's dangerous, I think.
It's also clearly restricting freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Without open dialogue and discussion, we can't get the breeze or the air of democracy. We need to, even the false narrative of our history or the negative narrative of our thoughts should be recorrected through reconciliation, not only reconciliation, re-discussion, re-dialogue, and re-meeting each other.
And the reunion. Fake reality should be deconstructed.
Yes.
And that's only possible through media.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm to say. Media present is the second hand of reality.
Yeah.
We do not have been in Iraq. We do not have been in Somalia, Yemen, Syria. But we know the war of Syria, the war of Somalia. So in this case, a number of people, even the political parties, I can't say in research finding this political party, but in some groups, based on their interest, they fabricate information, false information, and waving the air of demonstration needs to unrest. In the strategically orchestrated conflicts, orchestrated information and orchestrated disinformations that impact us and took a number of lives in the last 13 years, including this year. The transparency and open dialogue and open access of information solved this problem. Otherwise, banning, limiting, and inaccessibility is exposed the public for misinformation.
Okay, Solomon, let me come to you. Let us hear your perspective and your recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Zelalem. It's quite interesting that you came up with this issue in relation to the coming election, and that Ayala attempted to speak focusing on social media, and that's my area of study. The huge attention should be given to social media pertaining to the coming election, right? Regarding fake news, regarding disinformation, misinformation, and things of that kind, it's all accumulated in social media, in particular, right? If you are looking at the mainstream media, more or less there is system of governance, editing system. You see, the information sifts using editors, and it passes through many means and ways until it's cross-checked, rechecked, and double-checked. You see, we are just coming to the social media. That's the huge problem. It's difficult to regulate it. It's difficult to manage it. You see, and there are hate speech there, hate speech that puts the country in chaos. Right? So we are just looking at pages. There are huge pages having a lot of followers, right? And there are these guys known as activists, right? Basing on some sort of ethnic groups. I represent this ethnic group, that ethnic group. I don't know who gave them the responsibility, the voice. Them? It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. The point that we need to look into, I think, in my personal opinion, is that why the youth is attracted to this social media, particularly in our case, Facebook. What are the reasons that the youth in masses, in great number, is attracted toward this Facebook platform instead of the systemic, instead of regulated mainstream media? That's a very important question, I think.
Very important question.
Once we understand why the youth in great number is attracted toward the Facebook or the social media platform, at least we are going to know the factors. The factors. So I'm just looking at that. The first reason that I came up in my research is that the stifle political situation. The political situation, the political atmosphere, the political environment does not give you an opportunity to speak your mind, to express your mind, right? It doesn't give ample space, opportunity. As a result, in order to reflect their own idea, political agenda or political idea, right? The youth tends to move towards the social media, social media. The situation is a little bit stifled in the political atmosphere, right? So those things are pushing factors for the youth to move into the social media. The second one is the mainstream medias themselves. My friend explained it well. They are more or less the spokesperson of the government. They have been the spokesperson of the government, the mouthpiece of the government. Whatsoever thing that the government would like to propagate, they are going to do it, right? At least they have been going to do it, right? That was a problem. To get a differing view, to get a complaining view or the views of the public, the majority, right? We can't get it in the mainstream media. So the use tends towards what we call it the social media, because there is an alternative view there. There is a differing view there, right? The other one is the media's peculiar characteristics itself. It's hypertextual. It is complemented and supplemented with a lot of technological tools, right? Those things are unattractive features for the youth to join those platforms in masses. You see, you can chat live, you can discuss with any person living at any corner of the world, right? It makes communication accessible. Its immediacy role and other peculiar characteristics of the platform enable the youth to join it in masses. And the peer pressure at the same time. Nowadays, so the social media have established itself as a culture of communication, right? If you do not have a Twitter account, if you do not have a Facebook page or other social media pages, you will be considered as obsoleted or backward.
Yeah.
You are not considered as a modern person. That's a peer pressure coming to you, right?
Yeah.
So you'll go to those platforms, right? You'll go to those platforms. So having seen these factors, the youth has joined the platform in great number, in masses. So what is exactly going on in those social media platforms? That's the question, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
Solomon, you are becoming very broader, and I appreciate your perspective here. Let me come to you, Ayela. Let's talk a bit about online media, because online media is influencing the information flow, and even the mainstream media, television, radio, newspaper, magazine, and others are also being absorbed by the online media, and informations are released now and then in the online media. And some are opinions, some are facts, and there is also a mix between activism and journalism. So what will be the consequence of such media trend, such online media trend, given that the media literacy level of our society is very, very low?
New theory is also existed, like media convergence. All traditional or mainstream media move into the online media landscape.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity. Anybody who have his own cell phone or mobile phone can have his own media.
Yeah.
He can also open a YouTube channel and broadcast what he wants and record it. Even the mainstream medias are late to report the issues. When you have to walk on the road, see the car accidents, a person who needs to report the story is only the minute takes he took the picture and post it. Like a 5-minute or 3-minute job, but they are not professional journalists. Information exchange is activated and accelerated and flourish in the airs. Now communication is not normally communication, it's over communicated, because a number of data, whether it's fake or true, distinguish between fake news and true information is blurred. We can't identify, it's blurred. We can't identify this is true and this is untrue. And a political activists wrote their own agenda and report some stories and use fake photographs, fake pictures. On this occasion, the Ethiopian situation also getting towards to conflict. We can remember the issue someone is blaming and labeling in words. All war and conflict starts in words, and that hate speech and conversation goes to the online media. Because of this, peace negotiation is not in the landscape. Some elites and public, a part of a society, is isolated themselves to present agenda of issue. And the vacuum or the air of the Ethiopian information system is shattered. media literacy is the only solution.
The only solution.
Educating the people.
Yeah.
Do not use first-hand information and become a first-hand user and consume or cultivate all information as it is.
Yeah.
It needs to filter out.
Yeah.
It needs to check and recheck or double-check the agenda or the issue. What is the interest of behind? If someone is tweets or posted any wrong information, most of the people share it. If someone is sharing the information, he believe it. So, trust, mutual respect, and the norms of the Ethiopia, the Ethiopians should be respected. What is the norms of the Ethiopia? The value is telling the truth and sharing accurate information, not lying and blaming or accusing or insulting. Because of this, in 2020, we remember us, they hate anti-hate speech law.
Yeah.
Why Ethiopia is declared anti-hate speech law? Most of defamation we can find in the 1953 Criminal Code of Ethiopia, the defamation rule, combating defamation and slander. But when it comes to the private, the online landscape, no one is responsible for reporting the story. There is no means of accountability.
Yeah.
Even the people are use fake identities to share information.
Yeah.
This gets towards the country and endangered by the fake information.
Solomon, so what's your recommendation to minimize the negative impact of social media?
Yeah, that's a very important point. Well, as you have mentioned, as Ayala mentioned, it's a huge problem. Right?
Global problem.
Exactly, particularly in our country cases, people have lost their lives, property damaged, people lost their precious friends, and like that, a lot of damage has happened because of particularly the social media activism. These guys who are just calling themselves as activists have got a hidden agenda behind them, most of them.
Yeah.
They claim that they stand for a certain ethnic group X or ethnic group Y. Behind that point, however, is their personal agenda.
Yeah, political most of the time.
Political agenda or even financial agenda even, right? There are these activists who are called hate mongers, right? They are just preaching hate, nothing but hate, right? Using fake photos, as Ayala said, using fake information, right? And they are just disseminating those information in masses to a lot of users who are just following them, right? Blindfoldedly following them. It's amazing. In the very 21st century, where knowledge thrives, following a single individual and accepting for granted every information which is spewed forth by that activist is true. Yeah. It's quite amazing. Yeah. It's quite amazing. So we need to consider it. Critical thinking is very important, right? Who is this individual? The youth need to do what we call it a background research, considering the activist, right? Who is this guy? What is the agenda behind this post, right? The youth need to consider and reconsider that thing, right? There are these type of activists known as cash mongers, right? They are just writing, posting everything in order to get money. Exactly, to satisfy their financial need, right? So people who are just considering themselves as activists have got hidden agenda, right? And this will cause a huge problem in the coming election. Yeah. How do we fight back? Yeah. First and foremost, as Ayala said, the youth need to have what we call it a media literacy knowledge. Yeah. What does media literacy knowledge mean, right? To know or to evaluate the essence of that information. Is it accurate? Is it truthful information? And to cross-check it using different sources, using different means, right? There is this tendency that the youth is accepting the information because activist X belongs to his own ethnic group, right? There is this tendency, it's quite wrong, right? It's unacceptable, right? So it doesn't matter that person belongs to my ethnic group or not. What matters most is the information at hand. Is that information determinantal? Is that information useful? Is that information good enough for the public? The youth need to consider and reconsider that very issue, right?
Yeah.
So apart from cross-checking, rechecking and double-checking the accuracy, the truthfulness of the information, the youth need to cross-check the information using different sources. Yeah. There is a very important thing that the youth needs to do, right? Apart from doing a background check on the, what we call it, activists.
Yeah, media literacy is a beautiful concept, but unfortunately restricted to the university, to the compound of the university. So I think you guys have a great responsibility in expanding media literacy to the society. So what you are doing in this regard?
Yeah, of course, the initiative of media literacy is Mr. Solomon, but on behalf of the Amhara Region Media or Journalists Association, we are establishing platforms. That platform is a research and journal publication system. That's we are invited different researchers in all over the country and media responsible bodies in Bahar Dar in April 2021. Then they discuss in different forms in the current hate speech law, in the current media policy change pointers, media regulation reforms, and Ethiopian media history. On this workshop, it's the first annual Ethiopian Media and Communication workshop. We will also publish the first Ethiopian Media and Communication journal, academic journal, that is open online and at the same time in a publishing book and distributed free for everyone. This is one way of building media literacy and giving an input for all citizens in Amharic and English language. But in a specific way of developing media literacy and building a tool and a weapon of knowing and identifying and filtering information system is working plan to under Mr. Solomon's issue.
So let us hear your brief idea here.
Thank you very much, Zalalam. Yes, as Ayala mentioned, there is a sense of urgency in establishing what we call it media literacy, particularly among the youth community, due to the problems that the mass media is, particularly the social media, is posing. So we are just looking at the concept. We can fight back this thing using two ways. One is using media literacy, the other one is using legal platform, right? The Ethiopia government has issued a legal platform, disinformation law, right? You can fight back using those things. The very important thing is to educate the youth, right? There are these countries known as like Finland, Norway, who inculcated media literacy in their educational curriculums, right? In junior high schools and in high schools even, they just give them as a certain subject, as a subject, right? So the media literacy concepts need to be inculcated in the curriculum, in Ethiopian curriculum, right? Because we need to educate the youth as to how to use the mass media, as to how to cross-check and recheck the validity, the accuracy of the information, right? So those media literacy knowledge should be implanted in high schools even, right? And in universities too, right? Most of the problems surfaced regarding the social media, particularly in tertiary education in universities, right? So those universities having School of Journalism need to include, I think in my university, media literacy as a